This is how the ruling BJP remembers the emergency, a time when dissent was a crime, a dark chapter they rightly condemn. Which raises a fundamental question: why do those who cry emergency now seem to be imposing one? Just days after commemorating the so-called murder of the constitution, the same party's government in Maharashtra passes a law that critics say mirrors its most repressive features. It's called the Maharashtra Special Public Security Bill, or MSPS. Now the government says it's for fighting a phantom menace they call urban naxals. But when a government passes a law in the name of your security, the first duty of a citizen is not to feel secure, but to become skeptical. So, for the next few minutes, let's set aside the politics and do exactly that. Let's ask some simple questions. The first question: what does the law not define? It targets any act that supposedly constitutes a danger or menace to public order, peace and tranquility. Now ask yourself, what does this actually mean? Could a peaceful strike by a factory worker demanding fair wages be considered a menace to tranquility? Could a student protest against fee hikes be interpreted as interfering with the administration of the law? Well, when a law uses words that can be stretched like rubber, they're not meant to catch criminals. They are meant to create a net wide enough to catch anyone the state finds inconvenient. The most dangerous part of this law is the empty space, the deliberate ambiguity. It is a signed, blank check given to the police. Now, the second question. What happens if the state decides you've crossed this blurry line? The offenses are cognizable and non-bailable. Cognizable means arrest without a warrant. Non-bailable means getting bail is not a right but a Herculean task, often taking months or years. These aren't just legal technicalities, they are the mechanics of repression. And they prove a terrifying truth: the process is the punishment. We've seen this script before. Look at the Bhima Koregaon 16, a group of academics, lawyers and poets arrested under the urban naxal label. Among them was Father Stan Swami, an 84-year-old priest with Parkinson's. He was never convicted, he died in custody. It is a pattern. Look at Professor G.N. Sai Baba, a Delhi University academic who spent nearly a decade in jail. The High Court had to acquit him twice, but he died just months after his final release. For these men, the process itself became a death sentence, and the verdict came far too late. This brings us to the final, most crucial questions. Why is this law even necessary? The Union Minister for Home claims the Naxal movement is nearly defeated. He's in fact given us a deadline for March 31st, 2026. So we must ask, if old powerful laws like the UAPA were enough to dismantle 90% of the movement, why is a new, even more expansive weapon required for the remaining 10% now? The only logical answer is that this new weapon is not intended for the old target. And why does the state's gaze look only in one direction? A report from the Center for Study of Organized Hate found that Maharashtra leads the country in hate speech cases, with over 90% attributed to right-wing leaders. Yet, this law was specifically amended to target only left-wing extremist organizations. When a state ignores documented violence from one side to focus its entire legal machinery on the other side, it is not acting as a neutral arbitrator of law. It is crushing its ideological opponents. So, whose security is truly being protected here? Consider the protests against the redevelopment of Dharavi and mineral exploitation in Vidarbha. Perhaps the biggest threat to this public order isn't a phantom Maoist, but the farmer whose land is taken, the Adivasi whose forest is mined, and the citizen who stands in the way of a development project. This law's primary function is preemptive. It seeks to kill dissent not in the street, but in the mind, before it's even born. It manufactures silence and calls it peace. Which leaves the most fundamental question of all, not for the government, but for you. How does this law change the relationship between you and the state? It empowers the state to see you first and foremost as a potential suspect. Your thoughts, your associations, your protests all become potential evidence for your unlawful nature. The default setting of the state towards its people shifts from being a citizen to being a suspect. And that is the most profound and dangerous transformation of all. It is, in effect, an undeclared emergency.